Hello, faithful, and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion. Only smart takes, never any clickbait. And today, before we get into the 49ers Eagles wildcard preview, we're going to be discussing Niner players that made All-Pro status. We're going to be talking injuries. There are a lot of them. Roster moves, who I think will be playing, who I think may get elevated from the practice squad, how the Niners can juggle some positions based on injury and availability. Then we will dive into the Niners at the Eagles. Going to be discussing, Brock's struggles against top defenses, along with Kyle Shanahan's struggles against Vic Fangio. We're going to be talking offense and defensive rankings, where the Niners or the Eagles have the advantage, how this compares to the Seahawk game from last weekend. We'll discuss keys to the game and then get into a prediction. So jumping right in, I'm sure you guys know, and I apologize that this was not released earlier than Saturday afternoon. By the time this is edited and uploaded, all that good stuff, it'll be a good 25-ish hours before game time. So hopefully you guys are able to watch or listen, but sorry I couldn't get to this sooner. As you may be aware, 3 49ers made the AP All-Pro team. Christian McCaffrey, first team All-Pro as an all-purpose player. Falcons running back Bijan Robinson was first team All-Pro running back, and funny enough, he was second team all-purpose AP all-purpose player, which he deserves that, but it is curious that you can be a first and second teamer, even though it's different positions. Technically, Kyle Juszczyk, first team All-Pro at fullback, and Trent Williams, second team All-Pro at left tackle. These are generally the usual suspects. If Warner played a full season, if Bosa played a full season, maybe they would have gotten first or second team All-Pro status, but Christian McCaffrey should be in line for comeback player of the year, considering how much time he missed last year, played in only a handful of games, coming off of the bilateral Achilles injury and then the PCL injury, which kept him, out for the last, whatever it was, month and a half of the season. Which is why, the whole Ricky Pearsall situation, we need to cut him some slack. Like, again, I said last podcast, if this was an elbow, a shoulder, a ribs, an upper body injury that a receiver, a skill position player did not need to be close to 100% to play effectively, he'd be playing through. But the fact, again, that it is a PCL that kept him out over a month, whatever it was, 5 or 6 weeks, that ended McCaffrey's season last year. And the way the Niners were going, they might have, even if he could have come back, they might have shut him down because the season was lost at the midway point, basically, before he got that PCL injury. It's an unfortunate injury. And I'm seeing, images of people turning Ricky Pearsall's, body and skin into glass, everything outside of like the uniform. And yeah, it's funny, Glass Joe comparisons, the first boxer you fight in Mike Tyson's Punch Out. It sucks and it's unfortunate, but can we also say that the PCL injury is something that requires a certain amount of time to heal or get as close to 100% as it can. And then just like anything else, you injure a joint, the chance for re-injury is higher than the chance of freshly injuring the same joint on another leg. And that's just unfortunately what happened. He does. I said it in frustration last podcast or one before that. He keeps falling on his friggin' knee. And that's what happened to McCaffrey in Buffalo last year. That's what happened against Jacksonville when he hurt it initially, fell on it out of bounds, fell on it first reception against the Bears, was able to play through it, which made his absence against Seattle interesting. If he was knocked out of that game, then I think all of us would have been a bit more accepting of Pearsall missing the Seattle game. What I'm not a fan of is, and I understand why it's done for gamesmanship, but Kyle manipulating or lying to the media and to us, and he's got no obligation to tell the truth. I mean, it's a Bill Belichick staple, right? Against the Seahawks. Yeah, if the game was Sunday, they both would have had a much better chance to play. I guess because it would have been one extra day, yes, Williams and Pearsall would have had a better chance to play, but Pearsall still would have had no chance to play. Williams still would have had no chance to play. Word manipulation. I'm just not a big fan. And I was hoping that, given what Kyle said, and he did come out and say he re-aggravated his PCL injury against the Bears. Well, that doesn't sound good. If you're re-aggravating something that kept you out 6 weeks originally, do we think coming back 2 weeks after the Bear game is going to be possible for Pearsall? I have significant doubts. So Trent Williams was able to practice in a limited manner on Thursday and Friday. Wednesday is his general vet rest day, but Kyle said he wasn't able to go regardless. Did practice in a limited capacity. Pearsall, no, I think he was doing some running or jogging, let's say running on a side field, but did not practice with the team. But it goes beyond Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall, who are questionable. And the questionable designation is such horseshit. I don't know how much it matters. I mean, there should be some truth in injury designations. I mean, if nothing else, I don't give a shit about this, but for gambling, if I knew that Trent and Pearsall were doubtful going into the Seahawks game, I would have picked Seattle. And I'm a nobody, but there might have been people that earlier on in the week would have put money on Seattle given the correct designations. Both of those players had no chance to play. But questionable this week remains Williams and Pearsall, on top of Renardo Green at corner, Keon White, D tackle, DN, D Winters at linebacker, Luke Gifford at linebacker, and Jake. I don't even know why Jacob Cowing's on the injury report. Don't put someone on the injury. Well, they activated his practice window, but he's still not activated to the roster. He's not on the roster. And Kyle said there's really not much of a chance for him to play this week. Jacob Cowing or Jordan Watkins, take your pick. They're both kind of useless. Sky Moore is handling the return duties. I believe that Williams will play, that Pearsall will not. I think Renardo Green gives it a go. I think Keon White was, full practice on Friday. He'll give it a go. And I think one of the linebackers, D Winters or Luke Gifford, will play. And I think it'll be Gifford. I don't think it'll be D Winters. I mean, he getting your ankle stepped on with a cleat by a very big human being might need more than a week to recover. Luke Gifford had a quad injury. I'm not downplaying that. But I think one of those two linebackers will play, which means beyond the questionable linebackers, the three healthy linebackers on the roster are Eric Kendricks, who was promoted from the practice squad to the 53-man roster, Curtis Robinson, and Garrett Wallow. They're your three healthy linebackers. So they're going to need to promote newly signed to the practice squad. I would imagine Kaiser White as linebacker 4-ish or 5, let's say. And then Luke Gifford would be linebacker 4. Other potential, so you can only elevate 2 players, right, from the practice squad. And Kyle was asked if they would need to make any additional roster moves for this game. And he was asked yesterday. Now, any additional roster moves means signing a player off the street. And what player are you going to sign off the street on Friday or Saturday that's going to help you on Sunday? I mean, Kaiser White was signed Monday or Tuesday. I don't recall exactly the day. Veteran, 29 years old, only not even a week in the system, 3 practices that he got in. They're going to need a body. So a linebacker absolutely needs to be elevated. It's either Kaiser White or Jalen Graham. But other potential elevations could be Eli Apple at corner if Renardo Green can't go. It could be Jalen Graham at linebacker if they need a 5th and both D Winters and Luke Gifford can't go. And it could be Brandon Parker if for some reason Trent Williams can't go. Now, I think Trent Williams is going to play, and you have your normal 5 on the line. Then you're going to have Austin Pleasance backing up the tackle spots. You're going to have Connor Colby backing up the guard spots and Matt Hennessy backing up the guard spots, but mainly Jake Brendel at center. I'm not sure. I don't know if the Niners have the ability to roll the dice on elevating Brandon Parker from the practice, promoting just for this game, Brandon Parker, if they need multiple players at linebacker or a linebacker and a corner, because Renardo Green was a late addition to the injury report with an ankle injury. But should Trent Williams play and they don't make an offensive line elevation, if anything happens to Williams, then Austin Pleasance obviously comes in as the backup tackle. And then if either Pleasance or Colton McKivitz gets hurt, then Spencer Burford moves from left guard, because then he would be the next man up at tackle, and Connor Colby would be reinserted into the starting lineup at guard, for what it's worth. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but the Niners were the walking wounded going into the Bear game, came out more wounded with the Pearsall stuff, more wounded coming out of the Seahawk game, and they're holding on by a thread. And at least they're bringing in veterans in Kendricks and White to try to, this isn't even a stop the bleeding. I'm not sure what expectations folks are going to have. Like, oh, Eric Kendricks is he's a veteran. He should be a step up over Tatum Bethune or whomever. Okay, yeah, there is something to be said for being a veteran, but for only being with the team for what, 3 weeks? How much is he going to contribute or understand? How much is Kaiser White being with the team for 6 days going to contribute or understand versus a lesser player like Jalen Graham or whomever that fifth linebacker is going to be? All right, so let's get off of the injury report, even though it was lengthy. Niners at Eagles, 4:30 Eastern on Fox. The Eagles opened up as a 3.5-point favorite. Now they are a 5.5-point favorite. 44.5 over under. Last time these two teams played was 2023. Niners go into Philadelphia, absolutely curb stomp the Eagles 42-19. Brock threw 4 touchdowns. That game, though, the Eagles had different offensive and defensive coordinators than they do now. The offensive coordinator swap is probably a push, but bringing in Vic Fangio as the DC was a huge upgrade. And the Niners went into that game with Ayuk, with Debo, with Bosa, with Warner. All 4 players that they don't have this time around. And obviously Bosa and Warner hurt the defense. And given the state of the receiver situation without Pearsall, having a Debo and an Ayuk, even an Ayuk 15 months, 14-ish months coming off of a knee injury, significant knee injury, would help out this receiving core. Now, Philadelphia, the defending Super Bowl champs, this is not the Philadelphia team that lost to the Chiefs the first time in the Super Bowl. This is not the Philadelphia team that beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year. We're not going to say they're a shell of themselves, but they're a rather dysfunctional team. They have the dysfunction of a last place team, but they are first place in the NFC East and obviously are hosting this game. They are more dysfunctional than they should be, but it's the talent on the field, the players, which are, and Vic Fangio. I'm not sure, head coach wise, if Sirianni is all that great, because it's been proven that if he doesn't have the coordinators, he's just And Kevin Patullo to OC is Vic Fangio, a very good DC. Kyle Shanahan tried to hire him 3 times and just was unable to. But their last 6 games for Philadelphia, if you don't count the last week of the season, where they lost to Washington and nobody was playing anybody, the first 3 of those games in that 6-game stretch, they lost at Dallas, lost at home against Chicago, and lost at the Chargers. All right, you lose to 2 playoff teams and the Cowboys. And remember the Cowboy game, they were up 21-0. Their wins came against the Raiders at home, whoopee, at Washington, whoopee, and at Buffalo, where they beat the Bills 13-12. Really ugly game. The defense was able to hold the Bills' offense down, and the Eagles' offense, which is not high-powered by any means, did just enough against the Bills' defense, who has seen better days, to get that victory. I saw a stat, and after I started doing additional research, it's kind of moot, and I'll explain why, at least against Philadelphia. But I saw something online. Brock Purdy's stats and performance against top 10 defenses since he's come into the league. Brock has a record of 10-11, 26 touchdowns, and 19 interceptions. His worst year of those 4 years, 22, 23, and 24, was by far 2024 when everything kind of went to crap. I think he was 2-5. Every other year, including this year, his record is even 500. I saw this on social media by one of the Cone Clown Click followers, and thank you for doing the research for me just to share with the audience. But you know what the agenda is, that Brock struggles against top 10 defenses. I would wager every quarterback struggles to some degree against top 10 defenses. What's funny about this, though, that this person posted this stat, is that the Eagles are not a top 10 defense. They rank 13th. Now, I know we're splitting hairs, but when the Cone Clown Click is trying to make a point, they just better get their ducks in order to understand, to help everyone understand clearly the point that they're making. It wasn't about Seattle. It was about upcoming at Philadelphia. And I know being ranked 13th and 10th isn't a huge difference, but it just goes to show when morons and ignorant, I don't even know what the correct word is, and I'm going to try to keep it PG, but just ignorant fans and shysters want to push a narrative. They will change data. Does that sound familiar to anybody that follows politics? On both sides of the coin, they'll change the data to their liking. Now, I still shared the data with you guys, even though Philadelphia is not a top 10 defense. Except in points, they're top 5 scoring, but we're talking basically yardage, at least with this stat. Now, let's go over some offensive and defensive comparisons between the two teams as they ended the regular season. Offensively, San Francisco has the advantage, a better total overall offense, a better passing offense, a better scoring offense, averaging 3.4 more points per game. The Eagles are a better rush offense, but it's a battle of like who's less worse. The Niners are ranked 24th running the ball. The Eagles are ranked 18th, and Philadelphia is averaging 10 more rushing yards per game. And if you want to attribute that to Jalen Hurts, you can, because Brock missed so much time that he might have been able to make up that difference if it wasn't Mac Jones. If it was somebody else, it was maybe a more mobile quarterback. But God bless and thank you, Mac Jones, for keeping this team afloat, helping them reach a 12-5 record, which, let's just pause there really quickly before we get into the defensive rankings. 12-5 with the injuries mainly all across the board. I'm sure not many folks out there, or not as many as there should be, either listening or just in the general fandom, should be thankful and feel like this is a blessed year to be 12-5 and make the playoffs. Yes, it sucked and hurt to not win the West and get the number 1 seed and get a bye week. All of that is so fair to say when it was at home. And even though they got dominated, and they did, the ball bounces differently in 2 different areas, on defense with Couture and on offense with McCaffrey. The game could have been different. I will maintain closer, but they still lost, but could have been different. Could have mattered the last possession that San Francisco had, maybe going for a tie or a win. But make no mistake about it, Seattle dominated both sides of the ball, ran the ball down San Francisco's throat. The 3rd and 17 rushing conversion was completely unacceptable. They were getting a good amount of pressure on Brock Purdy, sacked 3 times, had to scramble a bunch more. But this is not the same team in Philadelphia that the Niners saw, even though the Niners are on the road this week, what they went up against Seattle in Santa Clara last week. Now, let's just get back to the rankings. Let's talk defense. Eagles have the better overall defense, the better pass defense. The Niners have the better run defense, and Philadelphia is better in points allowed. They're top 5, allowing 2.7 fewer points per game than San Francisco. Now, San Francisco's strength defensively versus Philadelphia, when you compare it, is run defense, but to me that's deceiving, because I've been on record saying that I think teams voluntarily go away from the run when they know San Francisco has minimal to no pass rush and that they can throw the ball all over the yard against the 49ers. This will be a difficult defensive assignment for San Francisco from the Eagles O-line, even with a banged up Lane Johnson. He's questionable at left tackle or right tackle, whatever he plays. I apologize. But he's going to go. And even without him, the Niners are going to get no rush on Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk about keys to the game in a minute. So given the fact that the Eagles O-line is better than the Seahawks O-line, and that Saquon Barkley is better than either running back that the Seahawks put out there, could the Eagles have a comparable rushing day to what Seattle did? Absolutely. NFL, any given Sunday. We'll see what Robert Saleh has dialed up for what he wants to limit or try to take away from Seattle. But this is going to be another game, and we all know it going in, that the pass rush for the Niners is going to be non-existent. And the Eagles, while they do have a better defense than San Francisco, it is not nearly as good of a defense as what Seattle has overall, and then what they brought and what they showed in San Francisco on Sunday night. The Eagles can have that exact jump in performance, playing over their skis, playing well above their rankings. But even going into it, Seattle was just an objectively better defense than the Eagles. And if they had played down to form, they still might have beaten San Francisco. Now, here's what's interesting. It's hard to say what the Niners do well on defense, right? Someone can say they do nothing well, and I'd be hard to argue them. But if you had to pick the weakness of San Francisco defensively, it's their pass D, right? It is. We watch all the games. We see teams, Jacoby Brissett throwing for a ton of yards, Stafford the second time around, Caleb Williams, among others. The Niners' weakness on defense is their pass D. Fortunately, the Eagles' weakness on offense is their pass offense, regardless of the weapons they have. And Jalen Hurts, congratulations this year. You went over 3,000 passing yards. Awesome. Did not last year. Still won the Super Bowl MVP, played a great game. Fine. That will never be taken away from him. But having Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Saquon out of the backfield, they are a bottom third pass offense in the league. They're ranked 23rd. Can the Niners pass defense make them look a whole lot better than what they actually are? Absolutely. But I'm hoping that, and we're all hoping that, this week, Saleh is going to see what everybody else has seen when playing the Eagles and how they have. Now, every team's going to game plan Philadelphia a little bit differently, but whatever tape they're watching, all DCs are probably seeing the same sort of thing. And hopefully Saleh can mimic universally whatever has worked best against the Eagles. And I don't want to say slow the Eagles down, but keep them performing the way they've always performed this year. That's how the Niners have a chance. They may need to overperform on offense, but defensively, keep the Eagles to specifically who they are, a middling or worse offense. When you're 23rd passing and 18th rushing and 19th in points scored, you're no better than 18th in the league in any offensive metric. You're a bottom half offense. That's what the Eagles are, a bottom half of the league offense. And that's probably what the Niners are defensively. They are a bottom half of the league defense. It's week on week, but which of the weak units can play a little bit stronger? And when you flip it around on offense for San Francisco, their weakness is their run offense. If you're gonna pick one, the running game or the passing game, of course you're picking the running game. And oh, by the way, on defense, that's the weakest unit for the Eagles, their run D. So across the board, you have week on week. When the Niners are on O and the Eagles are on D, when you flip it around, which weakest unit on each team's offense and defense, respectively, can play stronger and bigger than they are? The Niners' run offense is 24th in the league, a little over 100 yards a game. Philadelphia's run defense is 22nd in the league, allowing about 110-ish yards a game. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's around, or 120 something, excuse me, the low 120s. They are giving up more than San Francisco is gaining on the ground. Can the Niners shorten that gap between them? Can they exceed what the Eagles are giving up on the ground? I'm skeptical because I think Vic Fangio, he'll have stuff in store for Brock Purdy, no doubt. But his number one goal is going to be to take Christian McCaffrey away in both ways, running the ball and receiving it. I said this earlier, guys, and it's true. Philadelphia is not Seattle. They have some dudes, right? They have some dogs in Jalen Carter and Walter Nolan and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They have Brandon Graham is back. They have players. They have good play. And I'm shocked that it was Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell who were the only two All-Pros for the Eagles. Mitchell was a first-team All-Pro at corner. DeJean was a first-team All-Pro at nickel. I was surprised that between linebackers and their D-line, they don't have a great singular pass rusher on the defense, but I'm sure Fangio is going to find ways to exploit the Niners O-line and get to Purdy. But while the pass defenses for Philadelphia and Seattle are comparable, the run defenses are not. The Seahawks are giving up 92 yards a game, and here's the exact number. The Eagles are giving up 124 a game, plus 32 more per game for Philadelphia. It's just numbers on a page. Doesn't matter unless the Niners can find a way to exploit it. And when you flip it around offensively, Seattle is better in every category than the Philadelphia Eagles. They're averaging 34 more passing yards a game, 7 more rushing yards, which whatever. The Eagles are still under that. And the Seahawks are scoring 6 more points a game. That's significant. That's nearly a touchdown. That could matter. And yes, the Eagles only scored 13. I'm sorry, the Seahawks did only last week at Santa Clara. 13 should have been 19. Should have had those 2 other field goals, or at least one of them, right? Philadelphia is not Seattle. Just because they're the defending Super Bowl champs does not mean they're playing like their Super Bowl year, because as we all know, they are not. There is an advantage, I think, personnel-wise that the Eagles have. Not I think. There's an advantage that the Eagles have personnel-wise on both sides of the ball. Can the Niners make up for that with coaching? So you have Kyle Shanahan versus Vic Fangio, and you have Robert Saleh against Kevin Patullo, the Eagles' offensive coordinator. Kyle and Vic have went head-to-head 4 times, and in those games, Shanahan's offenses have scored 11, 6, 15, and 9 points. Not great showings. The quarterbacks of those games, John Beck, RG3, Jimmy G, who scored the 15, I guess, and Nick Mullins, who scored 9. That is going to be a battle, and there's going to be some times where Kyle's going to get over one on the Eagles, and there's going to be times where Vic's going to get over on Kyle. The Robert Saleh and Kevin Patullo battle, maybe there's a bigger difference there between Saleh and Patullo, but that could be mitigated by the personnel on the field for the Eagles offense and the Niners defense. But can the Niners have a consistent advantage coaching-wise that would go a long way towards San Francisco moving on to the divisional round? Now, keys to the game. Got about 6 or 7 of these that we're just going to talk through. The Niners need to start fast, right? Can't start with a couple 3-and-outs like they did against Seattle. Get points on the board. Field goals are okay. Touchdowns are better, obviously. Get a lead and make this middling offense keep up with you. And remember, offensively, they are ranked 18th or worse across the board, all rankings. And the Niners, outside of that Seattle game, and kudos to Seattle. And I said before, anytime there was someone interviewed in the post-game presser, whether it was Kyle, McCaffrey, Kittle, I don't know if we have to make adjustments. We just didn't execute. That's great to say, but we watched the game, players and coaches. The reason the Niners didn't execute is because what Seattle was doing. Seattle caused the Niners not to execute. The McCaffrey bobble that turned into an interception, bad luck. The Yetur Gross-Matos fumble that bounced into his chest and squirted out, bad luck. But beyond that, Seattle was the bully. And if Philadelphia comes out and winds up being the bully, getting, one or two or more quick stops against San Francisco, it could be a long day. It could be a long day. Keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket. He has 420 rushing yards this year, which basically equates to less than 30 a game. So he's, I don't know the exact number, but out of, say, 17 games, because he didn't play the last week of the season, he's not going to go Lamar or Josh Allen on anybody. But if he sees a crease or he gets outside the DNs, we've seen it. He has the ability to take off. Saleh and Chris Kasorik, the defensive line coach, 3/4 of the way through the season, changed their approach of hunting the quarterback because they weren't hunting anything. And it's more of a rush contain type of thing. That means the back end and the linebackers have to hold up in coverage, but don't let an X factor like Jalen Hurts' legs be the thing that beats you for a first down or breaks down coverage for a huge game. Number 3, win the line of scrimmage. I'm not going to go nuts, but I'm going to say mainly on offense. The offensive line needs to, not every play, but more often than not, win the line of scrimmage against a good Philadelphia defensive front, but not nearly as good as the Seahawks. I have no illusions that the Niners defensive line is going to win the line of scrimmage against the Eagles O-line. We all know that's not going to happen. But how you contain Hurts, how you limit Saquon Barkley is going to be important. But I have the Eagles O-line is just such a better unit than the Niners D-line. You just have to hope that the Eagles O-line just doesn't have their way with San Francisco's front all game. But on the O-line Niners, don't let Carter and Jordan Davis and Nolan Smith wreak havoc. 42 sacks on the year. It's a good amount. That's not even close to the 70 plus that they had. I guess it was in 2022, the first time they played against the Chiefs. It might have been last year. I don't recall, but I know they had a 70 sack season. Don't let them wreak havoc. Don't let them be game wreckers because they have the potential to be that. These players do. Brock, Kyle, everybody, be smart with the football. I mentioned Quinyon Mitchell's an all-pro. Cooper DeJean's an all-pro. This is a secondary that has 12 interceptions. Interestingly enough, linebacker Jalix Hunt leads the team in sacks with 6.5 and interceptions with 3. But be smart with the football. No hero ball. No anything crazy. Brock's the gunslinger mentality without the gunslinger arm. Is he going to make some tight window throws? Yes. Is he going to have to? Probably. Who knows how much man that Fangio is going to play. And he's going to say, all right, because we are figuring Pearsall's not playing, at least on the outside, Jennings, Bourne, and Robinson. How often and consistently can you beat Mitchell, DeJean, and apologies, I don't know who the other outside cornerback or third cornerback is for Philadelphia. But I would put my money on those Eagle corners, especially when 2 of the 3 are first-team All-Pros versus Jennings, Bourne, or DeMarcus Robinson. Feed McCaffrey and Kittle. McCaffrey needs at least 25 touches. And hopefully this game does not go the way of the Seahawks game where the running game was rendered irrelevant basically in the first half. Had that nice drive in the third quarter where McCaffrey bobbled it inside the 5 and it was intercepted. But McCaffrey needs 15 to 18 plus rushes and 5 to 7 plus receptions. And Kittle needs 7 to 10 targets. That ankle, I don't know how much wear and tear was put on it that Seahawk game, but hopefully it's better than it was going into the Seahawk game. He needs 7 to 10 targets. And lastly, key-wise, you need to get the role players involved, meaning someone like a Jake Tonjes, who is invisible, non-existent, doesn't see the field. I think it was on for 7 snaps against Seattle. And I think the staff mentioned that based on the personnel they play, when they're playing 2 tight ends, you don't want to, I mean, he said it, but you don't want to really give it away for defenses, although anyone watching film is going to see it. When you're going 2 tight ends, it's mainly run formations. So Farrell's the better run blocker than Tonjes. But, and I've said this before, for someone who's as creative as Kyle is, play calling wise, he doesn't utilize tight ends the way Sean McVay does. 3 tight ends, and all 3 are passing, receiving threats. Excuse me. Andy Reid in Kansas City, beyond Kelsey, Noah Gray, and who I forgot the third one that they have. He gets more involved. And when you have limitations like you do at the receiver position, why would you not want to get someone like a Jake Tonjes on the field? But it's beyond him. It's Brian Robinson. He needs to get involved and make an impact. Demarcus Robinson at receiver, Kendrick Bourne, invisible in the Seattle game. Your stars cannot, I don't think just, obviously, right? Just McCaffrey, Kittle, and Jennings. I don't think those 3 are going to carry the offense to a victory. And I'm not saying Brock needs to spread it around completely. Everybody has at least 3 receptions for the Niners to win, although that would help. But the ancillary players, the secondary and tertiary players, need to step up. And step up doesn't mean 100 yards. If someone gets that, great. It might not even mean 70 or 80 yards, but 40 or 50. And I'm not saying for Tonjes and Robinson and Bourne, but at least maybe 2 of those players needs to significantly overplay their game averages for either rushing or receiving to give help to a receiving core that is, if you want to say, a little bit marginally or minimally hobbled with Kittle's ankle, and obviously not having Pearsall for this game. So on to a prediction. So let me just start with the score. I'm going to say 24-20 Philadelphia. Doesn't make me a bad fan. Doesn't make me, I don't think I'm picking Philadelphia. So there's some like negative juju towards them that the Niners win. If that happens, awesome. I think even though Philadelphia is such a middling team offensively, they have a top 3 defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio and a lot of talent on that side of the ball, although it doesn't always show up. The Niners are banged up enough on both sides of the ball that this game may, and 24-20, it's right around the spread. I'm not saying the Eagles are going to blow them out. And if it happens, would I be shocked? Mildly. I think this game should be within 10. Philadelphia has the better roster, the more talented roster overall. Offensively, they're not performing like it at all. And defensively, it comes in spurts, right? It certainly isn't consistent. I mentioned, can the coaching edge or can the coaching matchups make up for that? And I guess for being on the road, as much as we want to give home field advantage that big of an impact. The injuries have caught up with San Francisco. They have overperformed for so many weeks, those 6 weeks with Brock coming back, going into the Seattle game. And the Seattle game didn't give me PTSD or leave a bad taste in my mouth or anything like that. And I've said before, and I maintain, the Eagles are not nearly as good of a team as the Seahawks on either side of the ball. And this is a better matchup than Seattle for San Francisco. This might actually be a better matchup than Chicago would be if the Niners went there instead. Obviously, the best matchup would have been Carolina. This is an eminently winnable game for San Francisco. To win, even though I'm picking Philadelphia, you need to win the time of possession battle. You need to control the clock, be greedy with the football, hog the ball. And it's not like you're doing that because the Eagles are so dynamic. You're keeping the football away from a team that struggles to score anyway. If you can get the Eagles in catch-up mode, if you can protect the ball, and these are going back to the keys to the game that I had, and win the turnover battle even. Win the turnover battle or keep it even. You can't go down -1 and certainly not -2 on the road. The Niners are going to have a really good shot. And like the Seahawks game, it may hinge on a couple of lucky or unlucky bounces. See McCaffrey and Yeturgos Matos. And just to end on, for anybody that gets to the end of this podcast, there's a lot of fans out there, and I know social media and Twitter is generally the loudest of the loudest and sometimes the worst of the worst and the lowest of the low. And I know Niner fans are spoiled. No Super Bowl in 31 years. Been to 3 multiple NFC championship games under Kyle, 1 Super Bowl under Jim Harbaugh appearance, 2 under Kyle. That hearing people say, oh, all these fans nowadays are soft and participation trophies and just happy to be there and blah, blah, blah. And the mentality should be Super Bowl or bust, and that's when you're a true fan. And if you have a Super Bowl or bust mentality every year, you're going to be miserable the vast majority of the time. I can understand why fans who are very passionate about their team have a Super Bowl or bust mentality. 8 weeks ago, thereabouts, I was on this podcast saying this is not a Super Bowl year. When there was some question if the Niners would even be able to make it in the playoffs before Brock returned. Then they go on a run, win 6 straight, have the number 1 seed in their grasp potentially, and a bye. 12-5 record. I am not happy to be here. I am not content with a playoff appearance and possibly an exit in the wild card round, but I live in something called the real goddamn world. And I look at the Niners roster, who they have and who they're missing, where they're playing, who they're playing, which is not a bad matchup for them, but just still think the Niners just don't have enough. And if they win this game, let's say, and the way that the Rams should be, you have to pray that if the Packers, we as Niner fans need the Packers to beat the Bears tonight, Saturday night, and we need the Panthers to beat the Rams at 4:30, which is going to start a little over an hour from now. And if the Niners win, the Niners would go to, the Niners would go to the Rams. I'm sorry, the Niners would go to, I'm getting all sorts confused. I'm gonna go back on that for a second because I don't have it up. If it's not in my notes, I'm not sure what's going on. If the Niners win this game, and the seeds hold, San Francisco would be going either to the Rams or the Seahawks. They would get bounced that game. I would get, and we would all get, an extra week of football, which is awesome. But everything the Niners have gone through, I'm thrilled to have one extra game of Niner football to watch. And I think it's a very winnable game. And I'm not picking them because of everything they've gone through, and just think that they're just not going to have enough on defense. And I think Fangio is going to slow them down enough on offense to give Philadelphia 1 extra or 2 extra possessions to score and win a 1-possession game. But to conclude, to go back to the Super Bowl or bust mentality, you're just going to be I can't tell you how to fan. It's not a healthy way to fan, I don't think. It's going to keep you sad and aggravated more often than not. And it's going to make people make illogical and ridiculous proclamations about fire Lynch, fire Kyle, trade Brock, get rid of Pearsall. He can't stay healthy. You're wasting the core. McCaffrey's going to be 30. You're wasting the core. Jalen Phillips, guys, I know I'm saying this at the end. Everybody wanted Jalen Phillips. He have the whole 2 sacks with the Eagles. Jalen Phillips would not have saved this team. Trey Hendrickson would not have saved this team. Maybe Myles Garrett would have. I don't think Max Crosby would. There's just too many injuries and deficiencies. The Niners are in the playoffs. I'm excited to watch the game. I'll be rooting my ass off. I'll be screaming, yelling, cursing at the TV at times, I'm sure. But no matter how this game ends, I am proud and happy about the season that the Niners have had, because going into the year, before all the injuries, nobody would have thought it would come to this. A quarter of the way through the season, halfway through the season, nobody would have thought it would have gotten to this point. So there is a house. I'm not calling it happy to be here. I'm calling it's house money. And every game, if the Niners win this game and every game, it's pushing all your chips to the center of the table and seeing if roulette comes up red or black, because that's what it's going to be for them, a coin flip, because they're going to be an underdog every game should they advance, as they should be. Going to stop there. Went 45 minutes, much longer than I thought this would go. Thank you all season and today for taking time out of your busy schedule to make us part of your listening or viewing routine. Whatever you guys are doing between now and we speak again, maybe Sunday night, probably Monday, the reaction show for Niners and Philadelphia. And the podcast is going to continue. It's going to be once a week. I'll probably, if the Niners lose against Philly, we'll do a wrap-up on Monday, and then I'll do a season wrap-up on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and then 1 week thereafter, we'll break down players and off-season stuff. We're not quite there yet, and even though I picked the Niners to lose, we're not there yet. At least one more game to go, and I hope you and we all enjoy it. Whatever you do between now, when we speak again, stay happy, healthy, and safe. We'll talk soon. All take care.